seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Here we go, bit of P.M.P. It's been a while, Terry, since I've had a beer on stage with you, mate. So let's get on stage.
Yeah, you'll not be having a beer with me. You'll not be having a beer with me. I'm on the water, kid. Diet started last week. Honestly, Bhoycie, I was sitting watching myself week after week after week. My face just getting bigger. And not enough's enough. So I'm just cutting down for a couple of weeks, couple of months until we get ourselves into shape. I've got this jersey to try and fit into properly. I'm glad you can only see the top half of it anyway.
Aye, it's looking class, mate. You happy with the kit?
Are
you happy with the kit?
Aye, it's class. Only noticed this wee bit here on the arm. The wee
logo.
Wee logo on the arm. Only noticed that.
That's the designer's trademark, Ian.
All right, okay.
So Ian Edwards, who designs the kits with me, that was the guy I'd spoke with for hours coming up with. But anyway, we're not going into all that shit. All that good stuff. Like, subscribe, become a Bhoycie Bus member. Like Paul Dyatt, like Phil McKinley, like Danny O'Malley, like Scott Howe, like Scott Cameron, like the Stoned Outlaw, Mischief Maker. If you want to do that, totally optional. Nobody cares, mate. Anyway, if you want to get a wee pie the next time you're watching P.M.P, piesportspie.com. Terry will tell you he's not going to order anymore soon, clearly, because he's he's in the water these days. But awesome. They are delicious, and you get a wee checkout Bus 1888. That's all you need to put. That's what it is, Bus 1888, and you get 12.5% off. So do that if you want to, and I'd love to say buy a t-shirt, but you can't now. Joseph Staunton comes in. How's it going, you blonde bombshell bastard? I think there's a compliment and a slagging off going on there, Terry. I kind of like that. It's good balance. So welcome aboard the bus to you, Joseph. Terry, what to make of today? Me and you were having a wee bit of dialogue in the messages. We weren't sure how we felt today. I think there was lots of ups and downs. I'm not convinced Celtic have been in the best form the last 3 or 4 games, to be honest with you, domestically. There was a few, obviously, changes that were necessary. Does it highlight the absence of the likes of Hatate when he's out? I know Mark was in the chat and he was sort of saying, look, the the backup players maybe on paper look good, but they're not as good. Danny O'Malley's already asking the question: was Iwata good? I don't know. I think when you take a Tatty out of any team, Terry, they're a lesser team for it. I think he's at that level now. We can't have a cake and eat it and go, this guy's worth 15, 20 million pounds. They take him out of the team and go, how come the team's not as good to him? I don't think we're in that space. And in fact, I don't think Celtic ever will be. What's your takeaway from it? Because we got a goal just before half time. That saved the day a wee bit, because up to that point, we were a wee bit worried.
I thought first half was boring as fuck, to be honest. I thought we were shit.
Lethargic, eh?
Flat, everything, as many negative words as you can think of. Couple of things play into that. Coming back after an international break, you expect it to be a little bit disjointed to start with. But even saying that, it just again felt there was so many players who just weren't at it. Going back to the lineup, so I was excited to see Iwata. I was hoping we would see him play. Missed Tatty's energy. I think that goes without saying. Did Iwata have a good game? I would say competent. I wouldn't go beyond competent, to be honest. I felt he played the game at his pace, which maybe isn't the pace that certainly not the pace Tatty plays the game at, and I don't think it's the pace that we want to be seeing the game. I just thought he, whilst he was neat and tidy in possession, didn't give much away. I felt it was walking pace quite a lot from him, and that's not to say he was poor or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I just felt.
But the tempo wasn't there, Terry.
The field was slow today.
Terry, the tempo wasn't there that we're used to seeing in the first half. So it's easy to pinpoint individuals and go, well, no attack means no pace. But we've said several times on this channel, and I was actually talking about it with David before we went live, it's Callum McGregor that makes the impetus of Celtic's pace dictated, Well, he was playing today, so that kind of just shows you there's many cogs to a machine, and it's unfair to pinpoint it at times on one or two individuals. I think it's an easy argument at times to have. Sometimes Celtic, I don't know, in the last 3 or 4 games, I just think in the first half have been off the pace, regardless who's played. We've just not been, as Tony Haggart used to call it, the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring. I think at times it's became a bit pedestrian in the first half. Is this because we've got such a cushion at the top of the league? Is there a complacency creeping in? I'm throwing these out as debating talking points, by the way, before people want to pinpoint me as that being my position on it. I'm just asking the question. Why is it in the last 4 games or so, with the gap that we've accrued that points tally because of the opposite of that? So what's leading us to having these times where get to half time and we'll see a shift in pace, intensity in the second? That's not how we got to the space we find ourselves in the league table, Terry. We got there by being at it for the off. I'm not convinced that we have been the last 3 or 4 games. Today just being another example.
I felt today was more noticeable than any other game, Bhoycie, to be honest. And just go back to what I was saying, not picking out Iwata, just I think that's his style. McGregor didn't stand out today. To be fair, I didn't think Jota had a particularly good game. Maeda was falling over himself in the first half. Kyogo wasn't involved very much. Do you know what I mean? It was from all sides, and I think the international break can be used to some extent. I also think the view that you get from the cameras at Ross County makes for a poor watch. If you watch any game, if you even go to watch an amateur game and you're standing at pitch level, you're thinking, oh, this is an awful game. But if you go up to an elevated position in a stand, any game at all that you're watching looks better. And I mean, that's not a great advert for going out across the world.
I didn't know JVC camcorders were still in use, Terry. Do you know what I mean? I know there's a cost of living crisis out there. Well done, Flash, on the old Twitter. She's like, cost of living crisis, isn't it? They're using JVC fucking camcorders for 1992. What is all that about?
Has to be some way of getting a better production than that, because it is awful, and it does make the game look worse than it actually is. But lucky in my eyes to be going in at half time with a lead. And I know there's sort of different views around the penalty. There's some that think it was clear cut, and there's some.
Let's go into it, Terry.
poor eyesight, I still can't see. I still can't see the handball. I obviously
What?
it has to have hit his arm because there's no way Willie
What
Collins
the
would
fuck?
have given it.
What have you watched? I know the camera angle might be changed. Where do you think it hit him?
I thought it came off Carter Vickers' shoulder.
Oh, stop! This is insane.
I can only tell you what I can see, and I've caveated this with I've got poor eyesight. I've seen it live, and I couldn't see nothing, and I've seen one replay, and I'm still couldn't see nothing. Now I accept it. It must be a handball because there's no way Willie would have given it otherwise.
Sure.
But I've seen it twice, and I couldn't see it. I'm looking.
But you speak for a lot of people, by the way, pal. You're speaking for a lot of people because on Twitter as well, there was some folk commenting. I was like, I don't know what we're missing here. For me, it comes off about there. And
it's one of these optical illusions that we have to accept.
But I genuinely didn't even see it as like even close. It's so weird because you're not alone in what you're saying, by the way. So I know I've got a completely different view than yours. But honestly, mate, like a lot of people are in agreement with you. They went, that's against us, Bhoycie, you're crying. I'm like, no, really, like, if that's Spfl, this is the process went. The ball comes in. This guy isn't just got his arm miles out his body, which is clear and obvious, by the way, Andy Walker. That does make it clear and obvious. Not just that. I'm going to double down on it. He's actually leading to play the ball with his arm, if you look at it. No, I don't mean he's doing that deliberately. But the sequence of events, Cameron Carter-Vickers' head's going in, his arm's going out in the same vicinity where Cameron Carter-Vickers' head is. It comes off his arm about there, I think. That's how I see it. I genuinely think it was stone wall, man. Like, I really felt that's one of those ones that's VAR's for. I mean, and you, by the way, Terry, can I just say, me and you have had debates on this plenty of times going, remember the argument we formed about a month ago? We said, ask yourself this, if it's given against you, do you think it's harsh? I've asked myself that question. I would be going, I'm putting my mind in that being Starfelt, for example, because he's the fall guy. Oh, mate, yeah, I'm cringing. I'm going, that's a pen every day of the week, man.
Still don't think it's in the top 3 obvious handballs this season, all of which weren't given.
Is that, but again, and then it comes back to, should we be comparing decisions to bad ones as a way of finding an argument? Because I think
I don't think it's a way of finding an argument. I think the whole point of this VAR was that the decision was right every time. And it still depends who's making the decision. Do you know what I mean? For me, the most obvious handball decision of this season was Goldson in the game against Celtic with both hands straight above his head. Goldson was also the second most obvious one, and Tavernier was the third most obvious one. I haven't seen any penalty given that's been more obvious than those 3.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say today that was in the Celtic Rangers game. That's a Rangers defender.
We wouldn't get
that. That's a Rangers defender. You don't think so?
No, not a chance.
Wow.
What happens next week? We don't get that.
Honestly,
that's where my frustration with VAR comes in. Is you're supposed to get the right decision every single time, and if we look across this,
I get that argument. Terry, for me, though, his arms out like that, though, Terry. He's leading me. I get his arms out.
Yes, I get his arms. All I'm saying.
So what's his arm out for?
All I'm saying to you is me watching it from the angles I've seen it. Me watching it, I couldn't see that it definitely hit his arm. For me, I thought it hit Carter Vickers' shoulder, but I'm accepting it must have hit his arm. Carter Vickers was straight away asking for it. There wasn't very much of a protest, and Willie Collins.
I'll take that on board. If you're not sure where the ball struck, that's fine. I'll take that one. But in terms of, let's say, not hypothetical.
The position of his body, if that's hit his arm, it's a stone waller. Yeah, absolutely.
That's my point.
His arm's right out. But I found it hard to say it definitely hit his arm from the angle. From the angle.
That's the only. I think that's the only window of opportunity I would give the argument. And to be honest, I think it's came clearly off his foot. I think as well. By the way, see the fridge. The fridge isn't obviously, you play for your team, you're going to appeal things, Terry. But the fridge ain't that type who's a big drama queen. He's looking at the ref going, come on. I always judge by that body language. To me, I thought it was a stone wall. And by the way, see if there is any doubt, that is the one time the one time, if there is doubt, it's went in our favour so far this season, so we'll take it. But for me, there was no doubt.
What about the kick, Bhoycie? If we get one next week, do you want him taking it?
The penalty.
I think it's two efforts.
Scuffed it again, eh?
I think it's two efforts have been dodgy enough.
I'm not. Who's a compelling penalty taker for Celtic right now?
I don't know. Well, McGregor for me, captain.
He's missed loads, mate. He's missed loads. Oh, I wouldn't. And I'm not saying a bad thing. I love Cal Hacken. We talk so highly of him. He's a panic merchant for me with the penalties. I wouldn't want him.
Well, if Moy's playing Moy, I'll take it.
No, I would be. Yeah, I think he was.
There's got to be a question mark over Moy. Moy's
my backtracking on Moy is unbelievable because I think he would be a number one. But he's not fit now. You look at that 11 today. If you look at that 11 today, I'll tell you why Kyogo doesn't take them. Because that chance he had may as well have been a penalty today. And he sends wide. Didn't give folk like him time to think. That's why Kyogo's never took a penalty for us, has he?
He's never took one. I think your centre forwards, you're obvious. Your centre forwards, you're obvious first port of call, and there must be a reason why he doesn't take them. And you might have touched on it. I mean, we'll touch on his miss later on, which has got to be the worst of the collection, to be fair. But I think if your centre forward isn't demanding that ball to take penalties, there has to be a reason.
20 months he's been at the football club, mate. Yeah. 20 months he's never took one, and we've had a variation in penalty takers over that time that's plentiful. So I wonder with that, because I agree with you. I thought Jota, see if Barry Robson did that, he strikes it cleanly down the middle. I thought he had initially, to be honest. Then I seen the replay, I went, he's hit that into it's hit the ground straight away. The contact's not clean whatsoever. And I also think with Jota's ability, is that really the type of penalty that tells you he's that confident? I don't think that's a. I remember the King of Kings used to do it, and that is when he missed a couple. He started striking it down the middle, and you went, you're trying. That's you not sure of your own courage of your own convictions, Terry will call it. And
I think stepping back just from what we think about the penalty and looking at the first half as a whole, I think it's still fair to say we were fortunate to go in ahead.
I couldn't agree more with that. It was the timing's everything as well with that goal, Terry. It meant the world to us massively, because from what has been a damp squib of a first half, you go in with your tails up. You go in going, see, we always do this, and that reassurance, that invincibility sort of feeling you've got, going, even when we're shite, we still get the job done, and you need that sometimes. It's a good thing to massage the ego. That I don't mean from a complacency perspective there, by the way. I mean, it's a confidence thing. Instead of going to half-time going, we were shite. Let's recognise it. Also, though, we are 1-0 up. That gives you a wave of invincibility, as I would call it.
The stats back it up, boys. Sky put the stats up. Celtic going in at half-time with a lead. Haven't had that lead overturned since 2018. 2018 was the last time we lost from a half-time winning position.
That's wild.
So that invincibility, that isn't just a word that you're throwing in there. The data backs that up. It's 5 years since we've lost a game from that position, which is absolutely amazing.
Let's revisit the penalty thing, because Loopy33, brilliant commenter on the channel, by the way, is always, he's not usually live, so it's good to see you, Loopy. That's why I brought up your comment today, because you're on live. But he always comments retrospectively, which is great, because he's always got good insight. He says there's not one in that starting 11 he'd be confident of taking a penalty. Now, there is a big game coming next week, Terry, and we can look ahead to it all week on the bus, and we will be. And you're welcome on any of the shows, Terry, as always, if you fancy it. But let's, as you say, fast forward, that being, you say the penalty wouldn't be given against them. Fine. Let's play devil's advocate, and it is given. Let's say it is given. Who takes that penalty against them? And you're confident will score?
If Moy's on the park, Moy has to take it.
Moy won't be fit next week. That's what we're seeing in the comments too.
If O's on the park, I would let O take it.
Yes.
Feeling that, I would look to the captain. That would be.
O had a scruffy one. Jota's had a scruffy one.
He did, but
it's funny though. There's no one you're going. At the point I think Loopy's trying to get at is there's no one you're going stick £100 on him to score it.
But why is this, Bhoycie? Why is this? Is this because we don't get that many penalties? Or
that's a great point.
But you know what I mean? if you're looking someone to take a penalty kick, it's 12 yards out.
You're right.
And they're all professional footballers. I mean, my goodness, you should be able to walk up to that ball, get a clean strike, and put it somewhere roughly where you're intending to do it. It shouldn't be that big an issue. And I don't know, as even you touched on Larsson there, as brilliant a player as Henrik Larsson was.
Oh, he wasn't compelling, mate. No.
His record would probably have been around about 60%, which was dreadful for someone of that level.
I'm scared put on a wee light, Terry. I've looked like him in the dark. Just carry on talking shit.
You go ahead. I touched on Larsson there. Larsson's record was probably about 60% accuracy on penalties. Yes, there was never going to be anybody who was going to step up and take one instead of him. But his record wasn't great. But we shouldn't be talking here about can we think of one player would be confident in scoring? We should be able to think of 9 or 10 players who should be able to go up and put the ball in the net.
But you know, it's funny because naturally I would have went Jota every day. I've said to you before, I think Hatate is an absolute magician, but for me, the one guy that is ability, like technique-wise and stuff, I think Jota's like fucking a different gravy. And that's a tough crowd I'm talking about here, but that's not a slight on anyone. I think I would have faith in him, but again, as you said today, it wasn't convincing. We do end up, though, Terry, going 2-0 up. We did knock on the door a lot more in the second half. I think that's fair to say. Jota's strike, which I thought was, by the way, going further above the bar than Haksabanović's effort. It was sees, then it just dips, hits the underside of the bar. We did start knocking on the door. How big an impact did it all have in proceedings? Because I messaged you when we were doing the triple substitution. I went, see, and this before Haxall's done anything, I wasn't trying to be snide. I went, Haxall's came on and we describe him as the impact sub, don't we? He's an impact sub. And he's been amazing when he's came on as an impact sub. He's never really came on, though, when it's mattered. And when he's came on today, it was 1-0, and I went, let's see what he does now when it's not a 3-0 lead. And in actual fact, it was undeniably the youngster. Oh, he is on a wave of confidence. I think he was born confident, to be fair. I don't mind that. There was a turn he did at one point that absolutely sent the Ross County defender for a hot dog. Should have shot a wee bit earlier, took an extra touch, and he ends up pulling it wide. But I think we've got a live one, Wheel. I really was impressed by him. Haksabanović, not so much. And by the way, just so you know, I am aware of the comments Brendan Rodgers has been sacked. We will get into that before we go as well. Yeah, that'll be a good talk. That'll be a good talk point. But we'll get into that in a wee bit. Let's do the second half first, though, because there was, the triple swaps are weapon Andrews used it 10 to 12 minutes later than he normally does as well today, Terry. Why do you think that was? And I actually think you look at the impact had. I think he was a wee bit late.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the second half, as you say, the second half was a bit more open. And as that second half wore on, Celtic started to play their football. I think that all still comes from that moment just before half time where we get the breakthrough. That changes the whole psychology of the game. Because if Ross County, to give them their dues, we were able to create nothing in the first 44 minutes of that first half. And if we hadn't got our noses in front, they would have come out with the same game plan and we probably would have struggled. But they've had to come out because they're, if they do what they do, they're going to end up losing the game 1-0. So they come out, and as they start to commit bodies more forward, then the opportunities appear. Touch on that control, that came from a long goal kick from Joe Hart. And
Did you see O's goal for South Korea that was disallowed?
Did you?
I know celebrating disallowed goals is a pathetic thing to do, right? Fuck me, that was see when I seen that I went, oof. I was like, wow. I thought that's how we've got a live one here, Terry. I thought today did that a different type of turn, but we're now beginning to see him flex his muscle a wee bit here. I think he's a player. I think he's got all the attributes mentally that Giakoumakis had, which I think was fundamental to a lot of Ange's success. I've said that before. He has swagger, confidence, physicality, ready to get stuck in. He might, though, I think, in fact, it's not even a might already. His technique is superior to Giakoumakis's. For all the rough and readiness I loved of chaos and the chaos that he brought, I think O brings a level of that madness as well. But I think he's got a wee bit more finesse, Terry, from what I've seen so far.
I think we'll have to think of a different name. We can't use the chaos, but that's the word that does come into my head whenever I see him play, because things happen around him, and they might not always be for the right reasons, but something's always happening, and you can't take your eyes off him for a second. And he was only in the play for a couple of minutes when he'd already had his first attempt on goal, that sort of double effort that he had. But that one movement where he took the goal kick from Joe Hart, he used strength, determination to turn the guy, and he then got away from him, and he created the opportunity for him to get the shot away. And I think, as you say, he probably just took an extra touch when he didn't need to. Still was a decent effort, just wasn't that far wide. But no, he's somebody I want to see more of, and very, very similar to Giakoumakis, just in terms of that strength and physique.
Yes.
That defenders will not want to play against this guy.
Totally.
Because of
Phil
all
McGinley's favourite saying that I use, he says, the best one, he goes, there's many ways to skin a cat. And I think O gives us a different way to skin a cat. I think that Kyogo can bring it. And that's not a slight on Kyogo at all. I think he's been wonderful this season. His goal records actually almost went under the radar. The volume of goals he scored. But teams know what to expect. We know Kyogo will start every game, right? We all know it. But when O comes on today, he was the game changer for me. That was when the shift really happened for Celtic to start opening avenues. He occupies defenders' minds as well as positionally. He can drag defenders out the box. His control's fantastic. And one thing he's got is, didn't give him even thought of having a shot, because he'll have a shot, Terry. I think at times, if there was a criticism of the Celtic team, we're a wee bit gun-shy that way.
I think his contribution, Bhoycie, is becoming more and more obvious each time he's coming on now. You know, he's getting involved in more and more incidents. And yeah, as soon as he gets it, his first thought is, can I get a shot away here? Bhoycie, you touched on Haksabanovic there. I thought his influence was just a little bit more subtle today. So when he's been coming on, you're sort of waiting, you're looking for that dribble, that cut in from the left. And I felt he still created quite a bit down that side with that little pass that he does, where Bernabei underlaps almost, and Haksabanovic was finding him time after time after time. And to be fair to Bernabei, I know we'll touch on his goal, he sent over about 4 really, really dangerous passes. Each time it was that same movement, Haksabanovic playing him, underlapping inside the fullback, and he was setting up. That's a fair point, by the way, Terry. We weren't able to take. And on any other, if 2 or 3 of those end up in the net, all of a sudden you're looking at what a contribution by Bernabei coming on, sets up 2, then scores a goal. Do I still sit here and hope Greg Taylor's fit next week? Absolutely, 100%. I wouldn't like to be getting into that game without Greg Taylor, but I felt Haksabanovic and Bernabei as a package on that left-hand side did quite a bit of damage.
I want to talk about Bernabei now, and the goal fucking hell, what a finish that is, by the way. And I think it's so easy to form a judgment on someone. I know Mark hasn't. By the way, Mark gets a hell of a lot more right than he gets wrong, right? He tells it from a truthful point of view that someone's go, but I can't be hypocritical. I actually kind of love that about him, to be fair. I think he's got the bollocks to say things that some of us have thought in the back of our minds and not wanted to say it loud. I respect that massively. I wonder if we can turn his mind on Bernabei a wee bit. You are so right about the underlapping runs. You are so right about the deliveries in the box. I look at Bernabei as a wee bulldog, and we're so quick. And by the way, this goes for every player. We're very quick, Terry, to judge. Right, we are very quick to judge players. We think Celtic standards or not Celtic standard within about 2 seconds of seeing them. And Philip DeMarco said, we just fancy to give these players a chance. He's absolutely right. We do. And I think that goal could be a real fucking, shot in the arm for Bernabei. I think that'll be something that was his moment today that he's not had yet. And it was an emphatic late score. But let's not just look at the technique and the beautiful nature of that strike. It was bloody important, Terry. This goal was so important. It was crucial. 1-0. I want your thoughts on the whole 17 games that we've played behind Rangers. Only 6 times we've played in front of them this season. Since the gap became 9 points, it's been 1 time, I believe. That's unbelievable. It's unnatural. Then you realise if he doesn't score that and Ross County get 1 more opportunity, that could be 6 points going into 2 more derbies. Suddenly the momentum, the whole media sort of angle, Terry, as well, turns. And suddenly they've got a bit of impetus again, our rivals. So Bernabe's goal today carried a hell of a lot more importance for Celtic, not just his development, which I think he seems to just be viewed as Bernabe, a Bernabe production. Everything's focused on Bernabe the solo. That was a team contribution he made to our football club today. It's massive in this title race. It won't be viewed as that. It wasn't Tony Ralston-esque at Ross County last season, Terry, and I get that. But notwithstanding that, that goal today absolutely clinched a very much needed victory before we go into a derby game where we either cement the title or if had the gap been 6, it would have been fucking 3, Terry, or 4 if we'd drawn it today, whatever. You know what I mean? If Ross County were to get another opportunity. That goal was massive today for Celtic, not just for Bernabe. And I think it'll be interesting to get people's thoughts on the impacts on the team that you've picked up on there, as opposed to just constantly focusing on Bernabe the individual. That goal was big today, Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. Sealed the points, and it was tremendous technique, which shows that the guy does have ability. And I don't think there's any sort of doubt that he does have a level of ability. But I think his attributes are all in the attacking sense, and I don't know. He looks more like a winger to me than potentially a left back. I just felt him and Haksabanovic. I don't know if it's something they work on in training. I just felt those two were dovetailing quite well. I know they were only on for a short space of time last.
We were a better team after the subs, Terry. So you're right to have these observations.
The game was opening up at the same time, which I don't think that's by chance either. That Haksabanovic comes on in the stages where the game's starting to open up. The defenders' legs have gone, all of that kind of thing. But I just enjoyed what I've seen between the two of them. The way they were playing, they seem to have a good relationship. Do you think either will start next week? No, not if Taylor's fit. Bernabe, I think
there's an issue with Taylor, mate. Taylor is not fit full stop.
Yeah,
right, he's not fit full stop. I don't mean in general. I think whatever he's been carrying, they've kept. They've tried to keep it under a lid. I think it's obvious. Mate, look how many times he's been subbed off recently. Look at his actual impacts in the game of late as well. Nowhere near the levels that Greg Taylor, ironically, set for himself that none of us seen coming. So I'm not hanging him out to dry here, but I think he's regressed a wee bit, and I do believe that Scotland didn't call him up because there was communication between club and country that said he ain't quite there yet. And today, he started again. He came off. Celtic were better for that.
Well, the argument has to be that the manager can't leave him out. He feels as if he can't leave him out. And just to touch there, we're talking about Bernabe's goal. Taylor was a strip of paint away from scoring a cracking goal himself.
2 right foot shots, remember? In the first half.
2 efforts right, which I think if you just stand back and look at it, your left backs are getting forward and having those kind of opportunities on goal as well. But no, it's probably a good enough point that you touch on, Taylor. There probably is something, but I think it's also telling them that the manager is still playing him and not giving him the time to recuperate properly from whatever it is that's niggling and annoying him.
But Terry, this isn't just him, because I literally backed Ange massively when I seen Maeda in the team, because he withdrew for the Japan squad early, and I went, look, if there was an issue, we've got so many options in the wide areas, Terry. Maeda wouldn't be starting unless he's 100% fit. I've got to contradict myself now and go, I didn't think he looked at the races as much today. That could be the way Ross County set up, and I get that. But was he as effective as normal, or was he maybe that knock that resulted in him leaving the Japan squad? Was there a wee bit more to that, Terry? Do you know what I mean?
Possibly. I mean, I didn't see much from him that would have made me think that he wasn't fit. I mean, he was still buzzing about doing the same job. He probably looked a little bit more clumsy than he normally does.
He's a different level of fitness though compared to the average Joe.
I know that.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, and I suppose if you've asked him to undertake a fitness test, he's probably ran the length of the pitch in 8 or 9 seconds or something. And you're going, well, he looks all right to me. Do you know what I mean? Enjoyed the conversation you're on mute. Enjoyed the conversation yourself and David had earlier today, just around I caught the vast majority of it, but the bit that I enjoyed listening to was around the transfer fees, and the English Premiership inflation and things like that. And Maida has been linked with Southampton. Was that right?
Yes, we've seen a bit of that. But can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, you can hear me all right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much truth there is in all that stuff. We don't want to go down the road, though, of undervaluing our players again, Terry. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we do not want to go down that road of. I wonder if clubs are smelling that Celtic might be a sellable club again. I don't mean as a club, I mean the players. We might be open for sale. And these vultures, well, if they get a whiff of that, they'll take advantage. I think a premium should be put to any EPL clubs. But we better go on to news that's current, that's been covering the live chat, because I know people want to hear this. Brendan Rodgers let go by Leicester, sacked by Leicester, I'm seeing. Funnily enough, that he's been heavily linked with the Spurs vacancy. Would that be a bit of Brendan engineering behind that, Terry? Do you think he's told them, I'm not resigning because you've got to pay me off and that'll cost you a few bob? So he's just sticking it out. Ironically, the same way Conte did with Spurs, the position he's been linked with. Do you think Brendan will take some time out? And more importantly, do you think the vacancy leaves up? Are Celtic is open to Leicester City coming for the Celtic boss again as they were before with Brendan Rodgers?
I've not seen any of this. So it is the terminology sacking. Yeah, it's not a mutual. It's not a leave.
Sacking.
Because I would be very surprised. I definitely wouldn't expect Brendan.
Managers don't resign anymore, Terry.
I wouldn't expect Brendan to leave mid-season. He wouldn't do that.
It's not just Brendan. It's not. See, in the EPL, when was the last time? Think about it. When was the last time a manager resigned? You don't resign, mate, because the contracts are worth too much. The payoff is too much money. You don't resign, right? Because you just get paid too much. You force your hand. That's what you do. You engineer a move. I think if Brendan has engineered the move at Leicester whilst the Spurs job's available and he's heavily linked with it, his ego would tell him, they'll offer me it. They'll offer me that gig. He's like that.
It'll be interesting to see. So Spurs have got the sort of caretaker boss at the moment. The previous assistant, he's kind of been looking after. I know they were linked with Nagelsmann, who got sacked from Bayern Munich. And see, Tuchel then took over the Munich job and got a massive result out of them yesterday. So a bit of a merry-go-round with some of these names of managers that do keep moving about. Rodgers for Spurs.
Great fit, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be a great opportunity for him, and a good appointment by them. I'm not convinced, though. I'm not convinced that that's somewhere where he would end up. I think there could be a few jobs in the Premiership coming available soon. I'm not convinced Liverpool won't press the button.
Well,
I know Klopp has got serious credit in the bank at Liverpool, but results business.
Let's move away then from where Brendan goes, because it's his gift to do what he wants and he's nothing to do with us anymore. But the vacancy leaves, ironically, Terry, is a vacancy we scoffed at the prospect of, ironically, Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic for. Would Leicester City considering going back down old ground and coming back and inviting the manager of Celtic to join them? I am not punting that, by the way. I'm just asking a question. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be in the back of our minds, and it should be, because Andrew's got to be someone who's viewed down there as he's got a bit of weight. I don't mean that in a snide way, Andrew. I mean, he has got a bit of clout now in European terms that I think, I'm not saying he necessarily strive for, but he's probably a wee bit bitter that he never had before. I think now he's like, now you know I'm a manager. But either way, regardless of that, undeniably, I think Leicester City would be remiss of them not to be looking at someone like Ange. I'm not saying he's going to leave for that shite. In fact, if I was to hedge a bet, I think Ange would likely, where their current space is, turn it down. I think he'd be cleverer, and if he were to join, make an agreement to join in the summer, which, by the way, people don't like to know, Terry, it's actually what Brendan Rodgers requested of Leicester and was told it's now or never. But Brendan actually initially said to Leicester, I want the job, I'll take the job, but I'd rather do it at the end of the season. And basically Leicester went, it's now or never, mate. And it forced his hand. let's forget about it from Angie's point of view. But from a Leicester City point of view, do you think they'll be having second glances at our manager?
I'm not convinced, Bhoycie. I still think down there that they'll scoff at anyone's achievements up here.
But their last manager was from us. That's the point. I'm like,
yeah, the last manager was from us,
rule.
but the last manager also was one slip away from winning the Premiership. So he had previous stock in that division.
That's a totally fair point.
Which Chance doesn't have. I think also just focusing on the same person that made that slip, I think he's probably done us a favour here as well, because the fact he's gone down there and bombed out at Aston Villa, again, probably adds weight to that argument. It doesn't matter what somebody does up there, you know, it's no mean feat. So, whilst do I think Ange could do a job for any of the teams down in that league? From what I've seen, based on what I've seen so far, yeah, absolutely. Do I think they'll be queuing up to try and get him? I genuinely don't.
Okay, if the clubs aren't, will the media be queuing up to link Ange with this job? I think that is what we will see in the lead up to the
Scottish media or the English media?
Scottish media.
Oh, absolutely.
The lead up to a derby. And there's a Leicester City vacancy. They join those dots, mate. They join those dots, and that will be unsettle us. I can see it.
You can see the first back page will be out tonight with something around that, and he's going to go this week, and in the summer he'll be taking 10 players along with him. Absolutely, because it's the usual narrative. Bhoycie, a week leading up to a big game, we'll have speculation around the manager. There'll be speculation around the players. There'll be all sorts of bluster about what the other side are going to do and what have you. I don't think it'll make any difference to us whatsoever. I know you've said there that you think we've sort of been in second gear for a few weeks. I thought today was poor. Do I think it's going to be any influence on next week's game? Nah, none whatsoever. I
don't think it'll have an impact on it. Yeah. I'm just saying that they know, like, the job is about to be done, Terry, come next Saturday. Celtic Park. Summer's back. It's going to be a beautiful day. We are going to be fancied, even by our rivals, to put a few past them. And they're due one, by the way. They're fucking due one, Terry. Because they're shite. And I think we've not been at our best yet. Still unbeaten against them in the last two games. Whilst not being at our best. I think we need to accept any upsetting of our juggernaut that they can do, they will do. This is a perfect storm. Do you not think it's a perfect start? For the media, I mean, by the way, not for Angela. He's not going to cover monkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the Ange thing, I mean, again, I think had we performed better in Europe, I think that would potentially have added sort of some weight to the argument of teams down south looking at him as well. I just think a team down there will look and go, well, he's cleaned up in Scotland, but that's easy. Look what he did in Europe. We'll not take a chance on him. The only reason I think some team might want to take a chance on him is if they've been watching us regularly since he became the manager and they've fallen in love with the style of play.
It's so interesting though, Terry, because see everything you're saying there.
Aye.
How guilty were we as Celtic fans and Scottish football fans of thinking that about Ange before he came to us?
Yeah, I know.
Cups, J-League titles, nobody cares, mate.
But I've caveated this with I think he could do a job down there. I'm just
I know. Oh, I know.
This is how people involved in those clubs down there, when they're having a conversation, will his name be mentioned? I would expect so. Will he be scratched out quite quickly? I would imagine so. Will they go for a big name that has had some experience in one of the bigger leagues? Most likely.
It's a brilliant talking point for them. We've got to glance ahead though to next week as well, Terry, because today, when we look at the fixtures, I want your takeaway on the whole we always play second thing, because you'll remember probably in the group chat, I know there's a bit of bazillion messages a day, but I was in January kind of disagreeing with Mark's take on it. He was like, we play behind them every single time, and I was like, oh look mate, it's not as bad as that. I revised my opinion on that. Mark was spot on, and since the next few months have panned out, actually, he forecasted as well, we'll never play before them. Well, they still think there's a chance. Now, that's called paranoia. I understand that. But today, regardless of whether there is naughty stuff going on, mischief making going on with the fixtures, whether there isn't, whether there is irrelevant. We were only 6 points ahead today before we played. It was a massive 3 points today going ahead to next week. Massive. The whole momentum shift that could have been this week leading up to the game, out with the Ange to Leicester links that are inevitable, would have been 2 derbies, 6 points, then it's just goal difference. Anything can happen. Because they'll start counting the points. Do you know what I mean? That's what they'll do. Today was massive with regards to keeping the narrative on they've got no chance, if any chance whatsoever, of keeping up with us.
You can look at it as any way you want, Bhoycie. I mean, how could the fixtures be arranged in preference? Because the only reason they change surely is for television. And I think if you're then going to say that there's some kind of dark arts at play, you then have to incorporate the TV companies and things like that as well. I don't think so. I think it's one of those coincidences really, and you can dice it up any way you want, because I think the fact that each time we have had to play after them, we have, we've done our job. That's got to be completely draining on the other side, because they'll be thinking, no matter how many times we get this down to 6, they're not going to roll over. They're just going to bring it back to 9 again. And another way of looking at it is they play before us. There's a pressure on them, because they know if they slip up in that match, then we're going to come behind and sweep another 3 points into the lead. So I don't know. I don't see how it could be carved up, to be honest, because the fixtures are the fixtures. They're all released at the start of the season, and the only reason they move usually is for television, and that then involves.
But Terry, this is where the argument falls apart, right? And I agree with you. I know what you're saying. How often though? Because Celtic and Rangers play the same amount of away games as each other and the same amount of home games. So how come when we're away, we're Saturday mornings at this time? Sunday mornings at this time. When they're away, they're the Saturday morning before we play at 3. 17 times, mate. Since Mickey Beale took over, Celtic have extended the gap to 12 points once. And it's been cut to 6 around 6 or 7 times already. That's fascinating. That's not me trying to be, there's a conspiracy against us. Just the optics of it. I can't imagine this is something that's the norm year on year. I don't have the research to compel that argument or double down on that. But it does seem glaringly obvious. And there's nothing wrong with people, I think someone said this morning with me and David, critically thinking on these things without being paranoid. You're just looking at it and you're observing it and you're calling it out a wee bit.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see over previous years when there's been the kind of scenario that we're in now. Has something similar happened? It does seem like an unbelievable trend, but I don't know. There would have to be more. If it was just down to the Scottish football authorities, then absolutely 100%. I would say, yeah, smell a rat. But you've so many other parties involved for any kind of collusion to happen. I don't see it. And I think my overriding thought is it doesn't matter a fuck anyway, because
yeah, well, I get that. But the thing though, Terry, it could be 1 point right now. Say it was 1 point. I think we would be kicking up a steam. And Patrick McLaughlin's right. I did say, as I just alluded to, at the time 6-7 weeks ago, Mark had brought it to our attention in the group chat, and I was like, nah, mate, it makes no odds. We've got to play the same teams home and away anyway. I've revised my opinion on it now. The number of times it's happened, even since 6-7 weeks ago, Patrick, I'm like, fucking hell, that seems a lot. And as Phil says, Russell's done an Aaron Moy style 180 on your point. I maybe have a wee bit. But show me someone who can't change their mind, I'll show you an idiot, Terry. It's one of those things where the direction of travel the league title's going seems obvious, but one way to generate interest in it is if the soundbite is 6 points between the top two at some point over a weekend. Folk are saying blaming Sky, but if you're the broadcaster promoting this product, of course you're going to do that. Of course you want it to be as tight. But I do think, looking back, I can't imagine the last 20 years since Sky have been involved in football there's been this number of away games, being played at different times, and Celtic always playing second, no matter whether it's home or away.
Another one you could maybe look at, Bhoycie, is the games that Celtic get after away European ties or after international breaks. I don't know, do we as Celtic fans think, well, we could have done without that journey up to the Highlands after all the players travelling all of last week, whereas Rangers are sitting with a home game on a Saturday kind of thing. I don't know.
He's not wrong, is he, Dermot? He's not wrong.
But I mean, the fixtures even then, Bhoycie, the fixtures are released at the start of the season. When those fixtures are released, nobody at that point knows when Celtic are going to be playing in Europe, where they're going to be playing in Europe. None of those things. I don't know. I would hate to think that things are at that point where that's what's trying to happen to derail this team. One wee point that's in my head, Bhoycie, as well. One thing I do think that they might look to do to try and stop us is the 5 sub rule. I can see it getting abandoned in the near future.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
That suits us so much. The 9 subs on the bench and the 5, the opportunity to bring on 5. I'm not sure. I don't really watch any other leagues, so I'm not sure whether other leagues have still continued to go with the 5 subs. It was obviously brought in during COVID and things like that to try and help the players and try and help the clubs field teams and be competitive during the pandemic and things like that. But it gives us such a huge advantage, and we've touched on it already on this show. We talk on it most post-match shows where the changes that we've made have a positive influence on the game, and I genuinely think that 5 subs gives us a serious advantage on any other team. And if
Angie's biggest crime, though, Terry, is building a brilliant squad.
If Scottish football are starting to wonder how on earth can we stop this team, I think that would be one of the quick wins would be to do away with that. I think the fact that we can have 9 players on the bench there and we can pick and choose which ones we bring on. What I would like I'd like to see happen, I'd like to see the 9 subs being listed continue, and the 5 subs, I'd like to see that continue because it suits us. I'd like to see something brought in where 3 of those 9 or 4 of those 9 need to be under 21 players or something like that. We've started to see. Yeah, we started to see the 2 young lads were named today, Summers and Vata. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I think Summers was on the bench the last game before we split up, or if it wasn't that one, it was the one before. Didn't get any game time. Vata got game time just because we went 2-0 up. We brought him on. He actually had a chance to score from one of Bernabeu's crosses. Vata was coming into the back post. He just couldn't get on.
One of Bernabeu's brilliant crosses, you mean?
Yeah, there were good deliveries to be fair to him. But yourself and David were talking earlier on the show again about these young fellas, and we're potentially losing another one to Aston Villa. And I mean, Vata, I haven't seen that much of him, to be honest. You just hear what people are saying around him and people that watch the B team playing and things like that. But he seems to be the sort of shining light at the moment, and he'll probably be the next one where teams are starting to focus on maybe looking at him, and we have to try and show some kind of pathway to these guys. And I think that's why himself and Summers have sort of been brought into the squad this game, and Summers laterally in the last one. But it's when do they get game time? Ange's already said, towards the end of last year that there were a few players that he expected to see pushing around that 6-month period. But we're going to continue to lose these young lads unless we're giving them game time. So I was happy to see the 2 boys getting on the bench today. The game didn't play out in such a way that they could have both of them could have got on and got a bit more time. But I think that substitute rule, if there was going to be one tweak with it, I would like to see some kind of rule where you have to have young boys, and not just for Celtic. I think that would be good for the league as a whole, for all of the teams to have a couple of academy players on the bench and getting some kind of exposure to first team football.
I think the point me and David were kind of discussing is the level to be in Celtic's first team is so far away from what the youth players are being environments they're playing in. That gulp, whereas I think the EPL's under 23 league, I would imagine is a pretty competitive sport. I think that's a good grounding. And I think these guys can, not that they do very often either, by the way, for the record, but I still think that pathway is less of a bridge. I think the bridge from even the Celtic Colts team now to Celtic's so big, and it's too much a risk for a manager in this high pressure environment, Terry. I want to touch on Big Red's comment here. And I'm glad he's brought it up because I felt the exact same vibe as him. Alistair Johnson, mate. He'd bar you, he'd bar me, he'd bar Anthony Joshua. AJ would bar AJ. There you go. That's a headline. He is the boy, mate. That is the right back I'm looking for. And it's funny because you were talking earlier about the two signings he's made at fullback. When you look at it, well, other than Juranovic, he got rid of, pretty sharpish. But AJ and Bernabei are a complete contradiction of players. It's about styles making fights. It's about the many ways to skin a cat. Johnston, for me, though, what would Celtic be like without this guy? How weird is it we're talking about a guy who arrived in January like this? I've never seen anyone settle in. Even Atati last year, for all his amazing moments, you could tell there was a few grey areas in his game, and that's me being very pernickety. I look at Johnston today. There was one point he was trying to get a cutback, and the Ross County defenders kind of ran towards him. He's barely made a move towards it. He just shoulder, woof, sail it, and it just drops folds like a deck of cards.
I think it was the same moment, Bhoycie. He left two of them on the ground, down on the right hand side. He had no right really to come out of that. He had no right to come out with the ball at all. He left two of them. He left two of them on the ground, and even today as well, you don't notice just as much because the ball didn't end up in the net. But he had some excellent crosses in today that they went to begging. And if the ball goes into the net, then you focus on the delivery. What a delivery! But because it didn't end up in a goal, it probably goes a little bit unseen. But absolutely superb.
Terry, we look at transfer dealings, and I'm very guilty of it. You know, you sell a player for $7.5 million. Yet again, you buy in a replacement who's what, 100 grand more than Juranovic cost? I'm going, really? Is that an upgrade? Johnston for me is an upgrade on Joseph Juranovic. I don't care what anyone says. Don't care how many World Cups this cunt plays at in the rest of his life. Right? C-word. I don't care. For me, Johnston fits what see the waters we swim in Scotland is a physical league as much as it's great to be a great technical team. You've got to mix it. You have to have guys that can do the physical part, and I think Johnston, I hate the term he gets it, but he does get it, right? I think you are looking, without trying to be hysterical, but within 3 months, I don't think there's a player that we've signed, I've looked at, and within 2-3 months I've went, I could see him being the captain soon. Not even later. I don't mean to replace Callum McGregor. I mean as a vice captain. I think if there's a leadership group, I think a lot of the modern teams do that now, Terry. I don't know how comfortable you are with that sort of shite. But if there were to be a leadership group within the ranks at Celtic, he'd be in it. He would be in it already. That speaks to, it's huge compliments to the impact he's had. And I think
you still there? You lost your sound, have you? Alistair Johnson, yeah. I've said this a few times. It's hard to actually remember us without him in the team, and he's only been here since the turn of the year. Three full months he's been here, and there's Bhoycie away. See if he comes back in again. 3 full months Alistair Johnson's been there, and really, really hard to envisage a side without him being there. I think what's important at the minute is that we don't have any backup to him because Tony Ralston is carrying a knock at the moment as well, which obviously if Alistair Johnson was to pick up a knock, we could be in diffs because we don't have that backup. I think as well, I don't know if you're vocal with me. Yeah, you can hear you okay. Looking at that January window, do you think Ange purposely targeted some players with a bit more physicality, because you've got Johnson, who he probably doesn't look. I know we've said that he looks strong without. He's not a huge physical presence, but he is very, very strong. Is a massive physical presence and his strength is obvious. But I also looked at Iwata today. I thought Iwata had quite a physical presence as well. Obviously quite short, but really broad, really, really strong looking. And those three guys all came in that window and could be absolutely nothing in it, but they all look like three technically really good players who also have the physicality to mix it and deal with anything that comes along their way in a league like the one that we play in. And when we come up against players whose focus is more on the physical side of things than the technical side.
Which is, by the way, par for the course in Scottish football. It's not a criticism of other teams, by the way. They've got to play to their strengths as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Johnston, we've got a player none of us seen coming, if that makes sense. And now he's here. It's like, well, thank fuck for that, because I was tiresome of the Juranovic antics, to be honest with you. It didn't surprise me if he'd angled for a transfer. I thought his body language, I've said this a million times, after his OG at Celtic Park in September, October, I went, he's walking away smiling. That's not a Celtic, but I think Johnson would have his head in his hands, getting the ball at the net, chucking it up to the centre circle, disgusted. Juranovic walked away almost smirking. I think these are things that piss Ange off. And obviously everyone knows the wee viral sort of off tomorrow. And Ange just gave him the glare. How much is that of, you're maybe seeing a wee look behind the curtain there, Terry, and going, that's the reality of didn't fuck about here, eh? Like, we're not here to mess about. You will celebrate once we've won things. You'll get your time off then. Not right now. Not today, mate. I don't think Ange liked that.
Was that clip released by the club, Bhoycie?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the important one, because none of the things that come out into the public domain from the club are just happen to be a camera just happened to be there at that second. Going back to the "We Never Stop," that whole thing was obviously staged,
contrived.
Ange obviously was told to make sure and have his best performance on that day, and that whole thing. Anything that comes out from the club, there's definitely a bit of thought goes into it. It's not just released willy-nilly. Here's one, Bhoycie, as well.
Go on.
Just when you were off there, I was just touching on the fact that we've no backup to Johnson at the minute. Anthony Ralston's a bit of a concern as well from an injury perspective, and we've seen virtually nothing of Ralston this season, which, when you think about the impact that he had last season, we're almost a player down there, because when he was fit, he wasn't really getting much game time whilst Juranovic was fit. When he's been fit and Johnson's been fit, Johnson's got to play, and the rest of the time he hasn't been fit.
This is called the evolution, Jenny. Our heroes will fall away or they'll be let go. I think Ralston's perfect as our backup right back. That's all he'll ever be, though, in this Celtic team. He went for competing last year with Juranovic, and I felt it was a valid competition at right back to him and Juranovic. People used to scorn at that. They go, "You mental." Well, Ralston's numbers destroyed Juranovic's. Destroyed them. He was a valid contender for that role. I think this is when you start seeing a team now progressing. And I think when it comes to Johnston and Ralston, there's not a competition to be had. I think that's done. I know he's had injuries, and I see Lupe saying there he's not a backup if he's injured all the time, though. I don't think that's fair. I don't think he's injured all the time. I think the availability he had last year was incredible. And by the way, he was available most of this season. He just wasn't getting played. That's the reality. He's picked up an injury recently, and yeah, he's kept out longer than normal. But I also happen to think the difference between Johnston and Ralston, as much as I championed Ralston against Juranovic, I felt he brings plenty to the table. I would now be very much in the conversation on Johnston's side, Terry. I would be very much saying I don't think he's at that level. That to me, though, tells me Celtic's improved the position on the park. We're isolating the right back one right now. But this is what you want to see, Terry. You want it to be someone that you loved last season being now left in the shade by the new guy. That means the club's getting better. That means the team's improving. These aren't slights on Ralston or anything. It means they're like the level is going up. That's okay with me, pal.
Yeah, I think they're quite similar in terms of their style and their attributes. I just think Johnson's just a wee bit more polished at this stage, and what's that you've got? Is that an e-cig? Oh, I look like a big cigar. Ralston, yeah. In terms of what he did last season, you're probably thinking. I know I was, and I know other people were, that if Juranovic wasn't playing, you weren't bothered because you felt that Ralston was on a par with him. And I suppose by the same token, if Johnson was to get hurt and Ralston was our option and he played the same as he did last year, you'd probably be happy enough. But I just get the feeling Johnson's just on a slightly more elevated level than Anthony Ralston. From what we've seen, and it is a small sample size. It's 3 months, but I think we've seen enough, and we can call a player. We can call a player well enough to think that Alistair Johnson is the real deal.
Terry, David Turnbull in the season we lost to 10, I think was either Celtic's best player or one of 2 or 3 that came out with pass marks that year. Look where he's fallen in the pecking order. I don't feel sorry for him, by the way, and it's no offence to him either. I just mean, I'm glad that we're targeted an area of the park. We've improved. Cal McGregor's adapted to a new position. He's improved, believe it or not. This is called evolution. This is what we want to see right across the team. Jack Makis being replaced by will be the next conversation we have, probably into next season. That'll be when we form that opinion with real sort of conviction. But I see that as well, and it's like, if these are the wee signs of improvement that he can make over the team, that means we're in the right path of travel right now. We're going in the right places. Then we get to the summer, and it will be left back. Liam Greenlaw will tell us, the punk duck, he'll tell you what's that improved. Starfelt, people want an upgrade there. Don't be offended when people want upgrades. It doesn't mean the person in position is a bad player. It doesn't mean we're upset with them. It does. But we need the team to keep getting better because we've got eyes on bigger prizes. And I don't know for a fact. I was going to say I know for a fact. I don't know for a fact. But my hunch is Andrew's eyes are on what he can do in Europe.
Yeah, I think so. And as I've said on a few of our chats, Bhoycie, this summer to me definitely is the key one. And this will be the one that tells us what our ambitions are. If we want to make inroads in the Champions League, it's going to be very, very difficult, but it's going to require serious investment. It's going to require 3, maybe 4 upgrades on what we've already got. And if we go out and we do that, then I think we then know that the club want to back this manager. The club want to go in that direction where we have ambitions to improve what we deliver in the Champions League. If we don't do that, then unfortunately, I think we then have to accept that the club doesn't have the same ambition that we have as supporters. And we then look at a scenario where we have a manager like Ange Postecoglou, but he has hit his ceiling within that 3-year period. And that's when I would see him moving on.
There's not been a P.M.P for obviously a couple of weeks. In the midst of that, now me and you have banged the drum for a while. We usually have a few beers together, not just me. But we've entered into that territory where we go, what about the summer? What about the spending? If we don't do it this summer, it'll never happen. But in the last 2 weeks, whilst you've not been on, the projected turnover of the club, not profit, turnover is 112 million. That exceeded my expectations. That is higher. Now, that doesn't mean, ladies and gentlemen, we're sitting on 112 million pounds. I'm more aware of that than probably most, having ran a business that turned over £1 million. At no point was I a millionaire. Right? Let's get it right. But Terry, the microscope now, I think, or the torch, if you like, will shine brighter on Celtic affairs because of these headline numbers, will they not? And people talk about wage structure. Surely when we're talking about evolving the team and we're talking about improvements in positions, surely that means the wage structure has to also be a moving thing, if you like, than just, oh no, we've just got a wage structure, we just keep it at that, it plateaued, and we just keep it there. That's not really a sign of progress to me either. We've got to be flexible with that as the club's finances start to, obviously improve quite dramatically.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Bhoycie. And I know that on some of the shows, the name came up around Dembele, and again, it's not Dembele as in it has to be Moussa Dembele, but it's Moussa. That's an example. And what I was having to think around Dembele is there a way you could creatively make a deal like that happen for someone of that stature who is a free agent in the summer, but who commands massive wages? And I don't know, is there a way to do it? Like, say, for example, because he's a free agent, you're not paying a transfer fee. Say, for example, what would Moussa Dembele be on? 60, 70 grand, something like that?
I think at Leon he'd be about 60 grand a week. Right?
Say 60 grand a week, right? Get him on a 4-year deal on a free. 9 grand spread across that 4 years.
9 million.
9 million. Yeah,
well,
9 million. Sorry, 9 grand.
Yeah,
9 million.
Right.
9 million spread over 4 years.
Back in the milk, mate.
9 million spread over 4 years. Rough calculation. I think that works out somewhere around about 45 grand a week. Pay him a salary of 25 grand a week to keep him in line with the other earners at the club. That takes him to 70 a week, but you've done it in a creative way. If we went and spent 9 million quid now,
and as a sellable asset,
yeah, sell him on again, punt him in 2 years again. If we went out now and brought in a Moussa Dembele for 9 million on 25 grand a week, we would be sitting going, that was an amazing piece of business. So I don't know. I think to get better, we're going to have to bring in higher level players. To get
we can't just have a ceiling. We can't just have a ceiling that just exists forever, Terry.
To get those higher level players, you've got to pay more.
The ball keeps moving. By the way, season tickets go up in money. Champions League money goes up. TV money goes up. So Celtic's wage structure can't just be, oh, we've got a cap and that's it. I guess it's a bizarre way of thinking. And you're absolutely right. Maybe, and I also believe as fans, I've said this before, there's a larger audience watching today, 192. Thank you. But I also believe as fans, you're entitled to a bit of romance and a bit of the fairy tale. This is meant to be something that we spend our money and time invested in because it's our love out with our families, etc. is the club. Celtic, you've got to bring moments of magic to those fans as well. It can't just be so, no, we don't do that because we're straight line, because it's disinteresting then. There has to be moments like, I know there was a bit of virtue signaling. We got Robbie Keane when the league was already a dodo, but we found the money then to do it anyway, to get the fans back on board. That was a reactionary move because people were falling out of love, Terry. Whilst we're all in love, tickle our balls a wee bit.
Cut out just a wee tiny bit there, mate. I think you were talking about tickling balls or something like that.
Sorry, I was saying whilst aye, that was the last comment I made.
Aye. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Do you think we will? Do you think we will go out and spend serious dough?
I'm not convinced. I want them to, and I hope people put the pressure on, because I don't. At the end of the day, there's families there struggling in that will still buy those Sambas, will still buy the fourth kit, will pump all the money in. The revenue streams are there, and they're open accounts, mate. Everyone can read them. You can't be so flexible making money, but be completely have an unflexible business model of expenditure. This makes sense. If you want to improve your product, you have to go. Yeah. And I also think, as I say, there's a flip side to it as well, which isn't a business thing. Forget business for a minute. You have to keep fans' hearts, thumping and go, that's a moment in time. Who could imagine seeing him with the shirt in his hand? Yada, yada. I think that's part of being a football fan as well.
Yeah, exactly. And another side of that is, well, you've got to be able to attract those players to come to the club. And I think we've got a manager, again, that can do that, because he can sell. He obviously can sell playing European football, playing in the biggest competition in European football, but he can also sell a way of playing the game, which I think would be appealing to a lot of players. Probably not as appealing as a high salary and all that kind of thing, but the culture, the culture that appears to be there. Because again, we only go with what we see, but you don't see disgruntled players. They all look as if they're enjoying themselves.
Totally,
If they become disgruntled, then you see them go. Do you know what was funny today? I don't know if you picked up on it. Did you see when he was holding the corner flag and one of the players was about to take it, and was moving the corner flag to the chants of the Celtic fans? Thought that was funny as well. And you do see that. You do see the subs getting involved, whether it's when they're doing their warm-up, they're cheering on their colleague who's on the pitch, or whether they've come off and they're going along the line and high-fiving everyone. There does seem to be a real camaraderie within the bunch. And I think what you've seen in January with the 2 outgoings was anybody who remotely looks as if they're going to negatively influence that is out the door.
Well, that's it. I mean, Rob McNair, sorry, good to have you on the bus, Rob. He's talking about Dembele. I think this is where the point gets a wee bit lost, probably, that we're trying to make. It's not necessarily about Musa per se. You know, it's a signing of that ilk that captures the imaginations. The one where that WhatsApp group chat, for example, ours, is just on fire. You cannot believe, you keep refreshing the news because you've heard a rumour that X is about to sign. We're using Dembele as an example because, you know, he's on a free right now. But I mean, individually, if he's caused disharmony, fair enough. I do think that there has to become a point where we're allowed to, you know, what is it that you say, let us dream again? Well, we should be allowed that as well as football fans. And there's got to be wee moments of magic that you go, where were you when that happened? Because, like at Lumpet, that season by Tony Mowbray and then latterly by Lennon in charge, when Robbie Keane signed was a moment in a space and time that we will always remember. You always look how many fans were outside the ground that night. We knew the league was pretty much done. Him joining was like, what? It was, and I think that is a wee bit, in my opinion, that we've moved on from that. Everyone's kind of became a bit of an accountant, including myself at times, by the way, and I get that. Where everything just becomes all a wee bit textbook, Terry. Nothing's at the songbook anymore. Everyone's at the textbook. And I would like to see us, you know, do something that goes, no way did that just happen. I think we're allowed to have moments of that as fans. We don't all need to be in suits and kidding on with Peter Lawwell's nephew. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you've got to go, do you know what? Give us some romance. Let's go spend a wee bit of that money and do something out of the ordinary and make us all remember why Celtic is the fairy tale that it is.
The one that I really dreamed of, Bhoycie, was Bellamy. So a bit like Robbie Keane, Bellamy had come in on a 6-month loan deal.
Unreal. And at the same time, just very quick to jump in, the same night Barry Ferguson rejoined Rangers. Yeah. So the back page was split because it was both news was mad.
I think the Keane one was always ever just going to be a loan for those 6 months, and to be fair, the Bellamy one probably was as too. But there was just a couple of weeks where the narrative within the media was Celtic are just they're having a few conversations to see if this would be possible to get him back for another season. Ultimately, it wasn't. But yeah, I just remember how exciting it was when you were possibly looking at bringing in a player of that standard. And I suppose what would be amazing for us as fans is, rather than bringing in loan players from someone else, would just be if we can have players like that are ours. They're signed. They're part of the club. They're adding that little stardust to what we've already got.
Let's throw a couple of names out there, Terry, just for hypothetical sake. And I know we like doing this, and I appreciate you on the water. What about Scott McTominay, Patrick McLaughlin suggesting, for example, hot right now because of his 2 goals twice in a row for Scotland. Brilliant double against Spain, by the way. That was top quality. And obviously the other one, I mean, imagine Kieran Tierney rejoined us on a year's loan, for example, to start. I mean, wow. Like, and this is me, again, it's a completely hypothetical conversation. This is not what we think is going to happen. But just 2 examples there. A Man United midfielder like Scott McTominay, whose reputation within our country, Scotland, right now, couldn't be higher. Him joining would be a mad, like, fucking what? Or a Kieran Tierney back. And we know we can't afford to buy him. But back on a loan while he sorts his shit. And before you know it, you start being able to work out a way around getting him. I think that would capture the imagination, either of those two. And they're both Scottish internationals, funnily enough.
Do you think McTominay's a better player than Ryan Jack?
Only when he's not crying, mate.
I always thought McTominay was a decent player, to be honest. Not overly flash or anything, but just very, very, very effective and very good at what he does. John McGinn, obviously, will not get him now, but that would have been one that I would have loved. And I think John McGinn probably plays better for Scotland than he does for Aston Villa, to be honest. He seems to be a standout for Scotland every single time that he plays. I'm trying to think of people who could be within your compass. Any more names coming through in the chat? No,
not right now. I mean, McTominay's getting a lot of love in the chat. I mean, here's one. I'm going to throw one out there that would be available this summer and would be affordable. That is staunch. And it's not Ferguson. Billy Gilmore would be available, I think, and affordable.
I see.
By the way, could he play football in an Ange team?
I can see him coming in across the city, to be honest.
I'm
sure they've asked that question a few times.
He'll play them. He'll play for them for a £5 a week.
They
are staunch. But would he work in our team?
Yeah, I think he would.
Sign the player, not his history. Don't care about where his season tickets, families, all season tickets are. Nobody cares.
He's probably behind the trajectory that he probably wanted to be on, to be honest, in terms of game time and where he's at. I mean, obviously he got his big move and everything, but he needs to play next season. He needs to go somewhere where he's going to play. He's had a loan move that hasn't worked out because he's just been kicking his heels. I think is it Brighton he's at now? He's just been kicking his heels, and at his age, that's not where he needs to be. He needs games.
Cast your mind back to Scotland v England. Him and McGregor in midfield that day were unbelievable. Unbelievable together. I think that's one of those ones where you need to put your pride in the shelf as a football fan sometimes. And you go, fuck, who cares who he supports? They're good enough. We're Celtic, we're a club open to all. I would have no problem. I know Thomas Burns, he's like, Billy's mum would not let it happen. Too much of a blue nose. I think it's a different conversation once you speak to an Ange Postecoglou and he tells you
Scott Brown was a blue nose too.
Is his tattoo as big as Scott Brown's on his leg?
Bhoycie, one loan move that we all probably did want, and again, a player who is kind of career a little bit in the doldrums, Paddy Roberts. I mean, his career's just nosedived completely from where he was. Manchester City, loaned to Celtic. At that point, I thought the only way for that kid was up. He was going to be somebody that you were going to see on your screen playing at a high level, and it's just gone. I mean, if Celtic, if you heard Celtic were about to bring Paddy Roberts back, I mean, that wouldn't get me excited now because I think his career's just.
He missed the boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
He missed the boat, and Celtic were the right fit for him, but too many agents. Remember, he was when he joined Celtic. He had I think it was Adidas. He was a proper sponsored player. It was in like their top 5 most sponsored under 21 players. So he was on huge commercial revenues, and I think that's fed into his attitude that maybe Scotland's not the best thing for him as a brand, if you like, which is crazy. But individual players are brands now.
There's a free agent for us there.
What's your thoughts?
I think he's a good player. I think there were times where he looked a level above, and then there were other times you're going, really? So if we could get the absolute best out of him, I think unfortunate for him just the period that he was at the club. But can you imagine a player like that in the team that we've got now? Goals, I don't know. He'd hit 20 for the season. You'd have to think, no bother. He had a goal in him.
I'm not as intrigued by El Yunusi as David is.
I liked him.
I know a lot of people do. It's fair. And again, you just think under Ange, you know, if you thought he looked good under Lennon, then what would he be like under this Postecoglou regime? I think it's fair. One more before we go, Terry. And I like to always bring up posts from the commenters because it drives the conversation sometimes. I'm not going to read out his username because it's just funny. Can we talk about Spfl? Not your favourite, Terry. He thinks he's great at heading. He's a good bruiser. Pish ball player, though, and puts the whole back line under pressure. he feels it's time for a change there. I've already alluded to, if we're going to evolve the squad, certain guys that might be mainstays right now can still be improved on, regardless if they're currently mainstays of the team. Starfelt is one of those guys I would like to think you can improve still, and it'll be within our financial reality to improve on. That is not a slight at Carl Starfelt. My mind is turned on him as well. I think this season I've rated more of the stuff I maybe didn't the year before. His unbeaten record with carpet slippers is incredible. Kobayashi's came in, can't get him out the jersey. Cannot get in that team so far, but it might be again the integration thing, like Iwata said. That could just be because he's from Japan. But notwithstanding that, Terry, would that left centre half role be something you would focus on, given, let's say, £20 million to spend this summer, hypothetically? Let's just say you've got that. Would that be an area of the park you would look at improving on?
I wasn't going to talk about him today, to be honest, because I feel as if I'm going down the same rabbit hole every single game. I kind of agree with the point. I agree with the point there. I think he has a number of attributes where he's quite strong. However, his distribution isn't one of them. There were two examples today. So there was the time where he's had a look, he has seen Joe Hart coming out, and he's then played the ball back towards Joe Hart, and on another day that goes past him and goes into the net, or puts a striker in for an easy finish. I couldn't believe that Willie Collum didn't blow for that, because Joe Hart dived on the ball and caught it, and to me that was an obvious back pass and the goalkeeper using his hands. And then there was the pass to Carter Vickers. There was a pass to Carter Vickers which was far too heavy, and again let Ross County in. I suppose the one time I'd like to have seen him, and we didn't get that opportunity, was in the Champions League when we had more defending to do. And if his job was to mark a centre forward out of the game, which is where I think his strengths are, would I hold him in higher regard? And we're not going to see that, because Jens played most of those games because Starfelt wasn't fit.
I think he played all six.
Is that an area I would want to strengthen in? Yes, absolutely, 100%. If I had one signing this summer, I would be going centre half.
Before goalkeeper?
If I had another two, there would be left back and goalkeeper.
Well, I don't think we'll be as limited as, we'll only need to get one. But yeah, to answer the question, you're absolutely spot on. I agree. I think this isn't a witch hunt against Starfelt. As I say, my mind's kind of shifted. I'm more positive about him than I ever have been, I would say, in the last 3-4 months. Do I still think we can improve on it? Well, if the team's going to continue to evolve, like we've enjoyed seeing in other positions, yeah, I think that would be an area we could. But anyway, Terry, this has been brilliant tonight. I've enjoyed it. We are still top of the table. We are very much in control of our own destiny. The trophy ribbons will be tied soon. Next Saturday, are you going to be on the P.M.P?
Hopefully. Hope to be, Bhoycie. All being well. Still here.
Still in water?
We might make an exception next week.
Fucking right. You better make an exception, mate. I prefer the milk to the water. Anyway, brilliant interaction with the viewers today. It's been absolutely outstanding. 177 of you left. Like, subscribe, slag my hair, do what you want. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Ain't it great to be a Tim?
See ya.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. They won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.